What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cruisers Podcast. I'm Alex.
And I am Derek. Alex, it's great to see you. And it's a big week for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to enjoy some time off with the 4th of July holiday, Independence Day. So hopefully you're watching this on Monday morning, or maybe you've waited until some time off at work. But it's great to see all of you here. And Alex, it's great to see you today.
Yeah, likewise, Derek. I am so excited. I love the week of 4th of July. Depending on what day of the week it is, it's always nice to have a shorter work week, of course. I always get the 4th off, and it always just makes me think back to being, a kid and having those fireworks every time, or, every 4th. And um, we always, as a family, I wanted to ask you if you have any family traditions. We used to always, as a family, go and get like a huge bucket of KFC and get like hundreds of dollars worth of fireworks, and we would have like the biggest party at our house. It's like 105 degrees this week here in Texas, so I'm looking forward to just having some time in the pool, having a day off of work, and just hanging out with some family. What about you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting this year. The 4th falls on Thursday. And like you said, you'll be off, I'll be off, and probably a lot of you watching will be off. But it will be interesting to see how many people are taking off on Friday, the 5th, as well. Do you go back to work for just one day, or do you call it a week? It'd be interesting to see. You guys can let us know what you're doing in the comment section below. But we have those traditions as well. It's we've got Amanda and I have our two boys, and fireworks are magical, are they not? After
Yeah.
all these years, Disney in Florida still closes with what, Alex? Every night.
Big firework celebration.
Still to this day, because it's part of the magic. And we just went actually Saturday night, June 29th, to a little fireworks show, a local community, and I mean, it's a little bitty show. I'm talking like 8 minutes, and none of the huge fireworks. But even there, the kids, oh my goodness, how do they do this?
Yeah.
How does that little firework blow up into all these colors and all this stuff? And it is magical. And so we've got some of the same plans, hang out at Amanda's parents. They have a pool, and we have a baseball party as well. And one of the most the neat things to do, and I remember this as a child. I didn't get to get a lot of fireworks as a child, but it's always fun to go to a fireworks tent or stand. Here in Arkansas, we have tents. Why don't we have air conditioned places? I have no clue why, but to go there to let the kids, hey, pick out a basket, and then go pick out some fireworks that you like. And usually they gravitate towards the smaller stuff, which is appreciative, of
Yes.
course, pricing
Yes.
wise, because that stuff is expensive.
It
But
is
then we always grab, of
insane.
course, some bigger fireworks as well. And so Alex and I want to both share Happy Independence Day. It's America's birthday, is what the kids
That's
say.
right.
And Alex, you made a good point about safety. Be safe. A lot of the country is hot right now. It is summertime temperatures. It's 100 degrees plus. And when people get together, of course, there may be some drinking involved, which enjoy some beverages. But then when you throw in the fireworks, it can get dangerous. And it seems like every year we see stories of things that happen. And so be safe this week. We know that you're going to, but also you've got to step up and be that good friend, good brother, good mom and dad. Say, hey, no, you're not in the state to shoot fireworks.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily for us, we live literally one street away from the city limits. So we're in the country,
Wow.
and we're out in the county. And so we always, it was funny as a kid, the people that lived a street over would always come to our street and do their fireworks, or they would just come over to our house and do fireworks because, the cops are out, they're making sure people are, obeying the law and
Yeah.
everything. But man, it was just so fun. And you're right. It is so magical as a kid. Like, I just remember my brother and like my cousin and my aunt and uncle, just everybody would come over to our house, and we would just have a huge party. And of course, as the years go by, those numbers start dwindling and people doing their
Yeah.
own thing. And now it's just like me and my grandparents, or I go to my dad's house and hang out with them. But what I'm about to say next, this may transition what we were going to talk about a little bit today on the show.
Yeah.
Sorry to throw a curveball, but there's something brewing out there right now on the 4th of July week. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, as a travel agent, Derek, like I said, everybody listening, we did not talk about this before the show of what we were going to talk about, but I think we should spend a couple minutes talking about the hurricane right now
Yeah.
and just how quickly things can change. And Derek, how have you ever cruised in the middle of a hurricane, or beat it by a week or the week after,
Yeah.
or what are do you have any stories?
Great question. Great topic. It's that time of year. Hurricane season is here, and it can be very frustrating when you plan your trip a year out, 2 years out. You've paid all your money. You've planned for the ports of call. You've bought the excursions. You want to have a great vacation, and in the back of your mind, when you're sailing in July, August, September, there's a chance. There's a chance to encounter some bad weather, tropical storms, hurricanes, but you think, oh, probably not that week. What are the odds that it happens for my week? But things are very active right now. There's a hurricane out there, going to get up to a category 4 before it
Yeah,
enters the Gulf of Mexico, and they're not sure yet. Does it take a turn? That's always, is it not every storm like that? It's like, does it take the turn?
it is
Meaning
so
coming up and
unpredictable.
hitting. It is. And so, a couple things to keep in mind, not just for this storm, but for this season in general. Number one, know that the cruise line, whatever your cruise line you're sailing on, is going to keep you safe. They have not just people who enjoy weather, but meteorologists, scientists who work for them, who
Hmm.
work in their home offices, and I promise you they will keep you safe. Now, there may be disruptions. You may leave later in the day on embarkation day. You may stay in port a day. You may be going to the Western Caribbean. That's what you've booked. That's what the excursions you paid for are. And now you're going to flip to the Eastern because the Western has bad weather. Now we're going to go to the East. So your cruise will still happen, but keep those things in mind when you book independent excursions. If you book with a cruise line,
That's
they'll
right.
refund every penny. If you book independently, some of the big operators that have thousands of reviews that are really reputable, they will refund you. But some will say no refunds on bad weather, no refunds if your ship doesn't make it to the port of
Yep.
call. So keep those things in mind. But I've sailed during some choppy waters, and yes, you can think, man, this isn't right. This doesn't feel good. These waves are too big. But remember, the ship was made to withstand those that bad weather, just like your car. It drives on a great road just fine. It drives on a bumpy road fine as well. It's not comfortable, but it's made to do that.
That's right. And I remember, I was actually trying to go on a cruise this past Saturday. I was really trying to get on the Jubilee or even the Celebration out of Miami. And I just kept refreshing that page because I knew that there was a hurricane brewing, or, at the time, I think it was just a tropical storm. But I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to get a last minute cruise because I figured somebody would cancel their cruise because they didn't want to go because of the hurricane. And Derek tried to help me get on a last minute cruise, and we just were not successful there. But keep in mind too, anytime that there's a hurricane, definitely if you want to go on a last minute cruise, I've had it happen before where I really don't care if the waters are a little bit choppy. I don't care if we get to go to port or not. I just want to be on a ship. And so that's one of the things that, a little cruise tip. If you want a very last minute cruise deal, keep refreshing that page, a day or two before, because you never know. Someone will more than likely cancel because they just don't want to deal with it. But
Yep.
unfortunately, we were not successful this time, but maybe next time.
That's right. That's exactly right. A great topic there. If you ever have questions on weather or what you should do, be sure to ask us. You can, of course, comment here on YouTube if you would like, or on Facebook. And know that, again, the cruise lines will keep you safe. You're going to enjoy your cruise. So, great topic there. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed that there's not many itineraries affected, and everyone has a comfortable sailing and a great cruise and things like that. Let's get into some of the heart of the episode here. Last week we talked about 4 day cruising. We talked about short cruising. Amanda and I had booked a last minute, last second cruise within 12 hours of sailing. We booked the Carnival Breeze, so we kind of shared a little bit about that. We debunked some myths as well. I see it, and Alex, I have seen it dozens of times since last week. Someone posting, hey, I would like to go on a last minute cruise. I'm off. I just found out I have the week off. My project has been delayed. And people will say, you can't book a cruise within 3 days of the sell date. We booked a cruise within
Yep.
12 hours of the
Yep.
sell date. So people try to help on social media, but sometimes people don't know. And their heart is good, their intent is good, but if you don't have the right information, then you're not helping. So it's always important to know where to go to get your information. And the Cruisers podcast is one of those places. Alex and I both stay in tune with what's going on. And if we're not going to give you an answer that we think is right, we're going to give you the answer that is right. And if we don't know it, we're going to go find it. That is what it's all about. But we enjoyed last week. A lot of you guys, you liked the episode. You said that you would sell 4-day cruises. You have, you like them, or, oh, no, I never would. We talked about the Carnival Breeze and the Dream Class and some of those things. It was a great episode, but this episode is going to be awesome as well. Alex, he's already been to Alaska several weeks ago. We talked about that on one of our shows. And now here he is. He just went back again. And although these were like, they weren't even, I mean, within a couple of weeks of each other, different.
Yeah.
I think you'll, based on what we talked about, the trip itself was completely different. So tell us about your most recent trip. How was it different from your first trip? What were some highlights and things like that?
It was, and it was completely different. I mean, it was different just on the experiences because the ship was still the same, the itinerary was still the same, the
Yep,
crew all the same, and
that's good.
I've got a couple of really neat stories about the crew that we can get into. But yeah, I just got back. I think it's probably been 2 weeks now, but there was a 3 week gap in between my cruises to Alaska, and when I went the first week of May. I've always talked about the weather in Alaska because people are always posting in cruise groups. What do I wear? What, give me your Amazon link. What do I do? Is it going to be raining? Do I need a jacket? And it really, really just depends on how Alaska feels because the first cruise I went on with my sister, it was definitely cold, gloomy, rainy. Some might say a little bit depressing weather, but when you're in Alaska, that's kind of what you're looking for. Just that, it's like almost the Pacific Northwest style weather. It's just,
Sets the mood sometimes,
it
right?
does. And, it makes for some phenomenal pictures, phenomenal videos. And, it just kind of makes the experience overall just different from obviously sunny weather. And of course, we talked about that cruise. And the second time I went to Alaska, it rained just very little, but the sun was out every day. Leaving Seattle was gorgeous. I actually there's a video I posted on my Facebook page of my friend Jennifer that went with me. She wanted to lay out in Seattle because I kept telling her, "Look, if you want to get some sun, you need to do it now because it's going to be nasty weather pretty much this whole cruise." And we laid out on the Serenity deck at the very back, and I didn't bring
Oh my
sunscreen,
gosh.
which I should have brought sunscreen, but I didn't because I figured I didn't need any. But I had all of the yellow Serenity deck towels just covering my whole body because she wanted to lay out and get some sun, but I didn't want to get the sun, so I was just covered up like a mummy. And but I still got a sunburn, and I was still red the whole trip. But man, it was incredible. And if you have not booked Alaska, you have to book it. As Derek says a lot, that these sailings sail out so quickly, so you need to start looking at
Yeah.
2025 seriously. And it doesn't have to be Carnival, but there are so many cruise lines out there that are offering steals right now. I mean, if I look at my casino offers, they're all Alaska. They want
Yeah.
everyone to go up to Alaska. And I'm telling you, call Derek and Amanda. They will get you to Alaska because it is incredible. And a couple of things to point out, just, the weather was different and it really did make for a completely different experience. Um, God, it was the best. It was absolutely the
Yeah.
best trip I think I've had in a very long time.
That is awesome. It's Alaskan cruising has grown exponentially the last several years, so much that some of those ports are trying to say, okay, we just want 2 or 3 ships here at a time. We don't want 5 ships here at a time. But cruise lines continue to send multiple ships every year. Carnival Cruise Line, of course, has 3 visiting, one from San Francisco and 2 out of Seattle. Royal Caribbean uses Seattle, and they also leave out of Canada as well. Princess is known for Alaska. Holland America has been sailing in Alaska just about longer than any other cruise line. And so some of the supply there has resulted, as Alex said, in some unbelievable deals. I used to tell people if you want to go to Alaska in a balcony cabin, which Alex I would say is a must. Like if you're not going to go in the balcony, just stay at home.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I used to say that's
absolutely.
$5,000. Like just plan on $5,000 for the cruise itself, and that price has gone down substantially right now. Just regular prices with no offers. You could try a new cruise line. We're looking at between like 2,800 and 3,500 for a balcony cabin for two people, port taxes and fees included, all of it. And it's also a way if you cruise during the summer, June, July, August, and connecting it to the last story we talked about, you don't want to necessarily worry about weather that could severely impact your cruise. Then go to Alaska. You're going to have different weather, of course, as Alex has pointed out, but you're not going to be worrying about the hurricane per se that could
Right.
come in the summer months. And so that is pretty neat. Alex, one thing that I found very interesting about your second trip that's really neat, taking a second trip so close on the same ship, same itinerary, is the crew members that were there working were the same crew members there when you were there 3 weeks prior. So,
Yes.
what was that kind of like? Did you have maybe a handful of crew members that you really enjoyed, really took care of that first cruise that you
Mhm.
connected with again that second cruise? How did that go?
I did. Cruise director right now on the Luminosa is Tyler, your cruise director. I have been
Mm-hmm.
following Tyler since he was a bingo host on the Mardi Gras. He's worked closely with Aaron, Lee, Kendall, all the big names of cruise directors, and it has been so cool to just watch him grow in his career. And I've sailed. This was my fourth time cruising with Tyler, third time as cruise director, and we've just kind of became buds. And so we'll message each other on Instagram, and it's just so cool when you get to know a crew member and you get on the ship and you get to see them in their element and you get to just watch them shine because it's like, oh, I got to watch you grow up a little bit. But I'm close with Tyler. I'm close with, of course, the playlist cast. They just signed off this past weekend, but
Wow.
Charlie and a couple of the other ones that were on there. It was just so fun to catch up with them and just see them as when you get on and from just following them on social media to actually getting to cruise with them. It's so cool. You kind of feel like you're cruising with your family and you get to watch them do their thing. But a story that I'm about to share, like, still gives me chills just talking about it because I never in my life would have expected this to happen. And this just goes to show you the crew, they are some of the best people in the
Yeah.
world. They are the hardest workers and some of the nicest and kindest people I have ever spoken to in my life. And I'm not just saying that. It
Yeah.
was the last day. We were getting ready to pull into Victoria. It was around 7:30 p.m. 8 p.m. is get off the ship time in Victoria from 8 p.m. to 12. And I'm just standing there in the main lobby, and one of the crew runs up to me and says, "Oh, hi, Mr. Alex. How are you?" And I'm like, "Am I getting recognized? This is weird. Nobody even knows who I am." And it was my room steward from 3 weeks prior. And
Oh my
keep in
goodness.
mind, 3 weeks prior, I was at the very back of the ship, fourth deck, aft facing balcony. And this week, I was at the very front of the ship, completely different room steward, different everything. But she still remembered me, and not only did she remember me, she remembered my name, and she asked me how my sister was.
Oh my goodness.
And Pam, I'm telling you, Pam, if you're listening, you were one of the best I've ever had.
Wow.
She was just the sweetest, and it's just so cool that I know when you first get on the ship, they will always come knock on your door and kind of ask you, do you want turn down service in the morning or in the evening? Do you have any special requests, special accommodations? And then of course they get your name, and my legal name is Robert. And so half the time I just tell them, yeah, my name's Robert. Call me
Yeah.
Robert. I don't want to make anything confusing for you. But she called me by Alex, which is what I go by, and oh man, it was the coolest thing.
That's
And
awesome.
I don't know if anything, well, actually, something like that has happened to you a couple of times
Oh yeah.
where
Yep.
you're on the Frenzy and the people recognize you, and then
Yep.
just a couple of weeks ago on the Breeze, you're doing some recording and getting some B-roll footage and things like that, and one of the alchemists says, I've never met you, but I watched all of your stuff on YouTube because I never even knew what cruising was like. And
Yeah.
Derek and Amanda, if you haven't seen their YouTube channel, that is what they do.
Yeah.
Island Time. They just talk about cruise news and cruise everything, and it's such a cool thing to hear people follow you, Derek, just because
It, it
that's what you
is.
talk about.
It is, and like you said, sometimes when someone calls your name, and sometimes they'll say Derek, or they'll say, "Hey, there's island time," and it never seems ceases to amaze me. I look over there and I'm like, okay, someone has seen their content. Somebody cares about our
Yeah.
content, and it's always fun to take a second and say hello. Whether it's a crew member, we get just as many crew members as we do fellow passengers, and I always try to take a second and say hello. And people, it's interesting, Alex, because you get this too. People will say, "You look like and sound like just like you do on YouTube." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I do. I don't.
Yeah.
My makeup artist is here on the ship with me as they're in my studio. We have the same setup." But it's always interesting. But what's really neat is on the cruise, especially if it's a fellow passenger, to be able to, we may connect then and take a picture or something like that, shake hands. But then later on in the cruise, we may have 6 days left, 7 days left, and we can actually sit down together and talk about each other's families and grab a drink
Hmm.
together, watch a sporting event together. And that's what's really cool too. It really is. And like I said, every time someone says hello, I'm like, oh my gosh, someone actually watches some of the content and sees,
Yeah.
Alex, your content on Facebook that you work so hard to get out there.
Yeah, it was. I have a kind of a similar story, and I'm very, very, very young in my content creation. Getting my followers. Um, so it doesn't happen ever. It's only happened twice. But my friend Jennifer and I were sitting on the city bus. Actually, it's not really a city bus, but when you get off the ship in Victoria, there's going to be lots of people that try to take you into town and show you things because you only have a couple of hours, and you're getting there kind of at dark, at sunset. So
Mm-hmm.
people are like, "Is it safe? Is it not safe?" Let me tell you, pro tip: get off the ship in Victoria. I know the very next morning you're back in Seattle and it's very early and you got a long day of traveling, but get off the ship in Victoria because there's so much to see and so much to do. We get off the ship, Jennifer and I, and for $15, you get a round trip bus ticket that takes you into town. It's only a 10-minute bus ride, or it's a 30 to 40-minute walk through the city streets.
Wow.
And what they'll do is they'll drop you off right in front of just the heart of the city. And there's so much to see and so much to do. And Jennifer and I are sitting in the back of the bus, and the bus stops and starts to let people off. And there's two couples that are sitting next to us, and I can hear them talking because we're so close. And they said, what is there to do here? And I kind of butt in and I'm like, "Hey guys, I was actually just here a couple weeks ago. Get off the bus, take your pictures here. There's lots of shops and bars just up the street."
Yeah.
And the lady said, "Wait a minute, what's your name?" And I said, "My name's Alex." And she goes, I follow you. And she's like, "I've been following you for a couple of weeks now because I posted in the Carnival Luminosa group, just kind of giving some tips and tricks." And she's like, "Every time you posted something about Alaska, I would send it to my friends." And I was like, "Are you serious?" Wow, like I didn't even know how to react because I'd never really been recognized like that
Yeah.
before. It's just kind of the coolest thing, and I was able to give them some tips and tricks, and it's just cool whenever your hard work pays off in different ways.
That's
And
right. Exactly
it's
right.
just so fun. And they ended up commenting on one of my posts, and they said it was great meeting you. We're from Louisiana, and
Wow.
it's just things like that. It's not even about the money. It's just it just fuels me to want to help people. To help them find and figure out things to do in their ports of call. And if I
Exactly.
was able to help just one person that cruise, I mean,
It,
that's why I do what I
it,
do.
it's rewarding. It is. And it's not about the money. We just celebrated 3 years. You can go back on our Island Time YouTube channel. We went live. We shared how much money we've made in 3 years. If it was about the money, we'd shut the operation down. Okay.
Right.
Everybody's laid off. We're firing everybody. But it's being able to help people, like you said, being able to meet people. And people sometimes forget you and I are cruisers at heart. Like we don't just do this because maybe it's a business or something like that. We do this because we're talking about cruising now. You and I talk about what cruise we're going on next. It's we are cruisers at heart, and so being
Hmm.
able to just talk about something that we enjoy doing, it's a blessing in itself.
It
It really
is. It
is.
is. And I've talked about it for 10 years. I've been posting content for just 10 years of course 10 years ago I didn't get to cruise as much as I do now, but I'm always posting about, hey, this is what you're supposed to do when you go here, and things like
Yeah,
that. And so it's just fun that we have this platform of the Cruisers podcast, and you have your other YouTube channel,
yeah,
and man, I love it so much. And one of the things that I did post while on my cruise is you just talked about it. I think it was the week prior on Island Time about Juneau is kind of
yeah,
cracking down on the amount of guests that are coming into their city.
yeah,
And you think Juneau, the capital of Alaska, you think like Austin, Texas, you think like tons of people, right? And no, Juneau is very, very small, very, very small. And I think there were 4 or 5 ships in Juneau.
oh my goodness.
And
Yeah,
let me tell
that's a
you,
lot.
I felt that.
Yeah,
So we got there very early in the morning. I was working remote, so I think I got off the ship for maybe 45 minutes during
yeah,
the day, while my friend Jennifer went and did her own thing. But what we did is we docked. We let everybody off. People with disabilities, they were able to just get right off, and they said, "Hey, at 11:30, we're going to stop operations, and we're going to we're going to go out into the ocean a little bit, and then you're going to have to tender back onto the ship."
yep, yep,
11:30, they didn't let anybody off. So if you wanted to get off, you had time to get off from 7 a.m. to 11:30. Actually, we got there an hour early. People were
oh
getting
wow.
off at people were getting off at 6:30 in the morning. So
Yeah,
and then at 11:30 they shut operations, and then we floated out, and then you had to tender back onto the ship. Um, because other ships were coming in.
yeah,
And
needed that berth.
yeah. And what's crazy is I only got up, like I said, for about 30, 45 minutes. And so I was back on before the ship went out to sea a little bit. But to see these ships come in, we're floating out. It was insane. I saw 2 Holland America ships come in. Behind that
Mm,
was Princess, and then behind that was another one. And it was kind of foggy and rainy. And I've got a video of all of them coming in. They're like a
yeah,
football field's length apart from each other, and they're just rolling in. And not only that, you've got seaplanes that are taking off and
yeah,
landing, just flying like right next to these Holland America ships. And I'm like, this is a very, very, very busy port. And you know, at first I was like, I really kind of wish these ports of call would not crack down on the cruise ships, because number one, the Alaskan season is so limited. There's such
yeah,
a long amount of time where there's not any ships coming in. Maybe smaller ships, but it's just too darn cold, and it's just not the
yeah,
Alaskan season. But I kind of respect it now after seeing it firsthand. I I think I don't know, Derek. How what are your
yeah,
thoughts on it? I think it's
yeah.
too many
It's
people. It makes
yeah,
long lines at restaurants. Your shore
absolutely.
excursions are just jam packed. I think
Yeah,
it's time to space things out a bit.
yep. Too much of anything is not a good thing. It's what
Right.
people say, and we've seen this not just here in the United States, but around the world. Barcelona has done this. We've seen Key West the last couple of years say, "We'll take cruise ships, but only smaller ones." And then Alaska's been the latest one, the biggest one that people were kind of surprised at because of the short season that it has. But I'm all for local residents having a say so in what happens in their community. And it's not that they don't love cruising per se, they love cruising, the business that comes from it. But sometimes places like Juneau, they feel overwhelmed because, like you said, Alex, they don't really have the infrastructure. You would think it's this big city with all these people, but there may be 10 or 12,000 people there
Right.
locally that can
Yep.
work, taxi drivers, shore excursion operators. And what you see is these restaurant owners love the business, but say, guys, I'm overwhelmed. We got people out the door, and
Yes.
we feel like we have to be rushed. Or suppliers, hey, we can't get enough XYZ, whatever type of food or whatever it is. We can't order that much. We can't haul that much. We're not used to that. We're a mom and pop shop or short
Yep.
excursion operators who a lot of times short excursions in Alaska are smaller. You go to the Caribbean, you may literally have 80 or 100 people on a catamaran, whereas in Alaska they're much smaller, and so sometimes it just puts pressure on them. And so I am all in favor of local residents being able to say, "Hey, let's limit this to 3 ships a day or whatever it may be." But it's neat too, Alex, that you share your perspective and what cruise lines are trying to do to help the situation. Uh, like you said, the Luminoso pulled up. If you want to get off the ship, get off the ship. But at 11:30, we do need to back away and let someone else, pull in here and again let off people as well. But it'll be interesting to see. It looks like what Juneau has done, and some people bash these cities for this, which I don't get. But what Juneau has done is they've looked at the numbers from last year and this year, and they've capped it really at where it's at. They're not cutting. They're not saying, okay, we're going to allow 2 cruise ships. They're going to allow what has been going on
Hmm.
last year and this year, which is the all-time peak of
Yeah.
cruising. And they're not going to implement it here for a couple of seasons. So I really do think it's fair for those local residents there. I think it will result in a better guest experience from cruisers that visit Juneau in
Hmm.
similar situations around the world. So I'm all in favor of this, even though it can be frustrating sometimes. Like you said, your situation there, but it's got to be understandable at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And two things, I get a lot of questions about Alaska and people that have mobility issues.
Yeah.
With the tides, one thing about Alaska is you really, really get to see low tide and high tide. It is
Mm.
insane. I posted a couple of pictures of just when we pull into, I think this one was Skagway, it was low tide. And the very front of the ship was almost touching like the concrete, like, because we were so low at low tide. And then you can just see how high the water gets at high tide. And so with people that are in wheelchairs, I mean, is the ship able to accommodate those types of people? Because um, parts of the day when you're getting off the ship, it might be stairs. Parts of the day, it might be a ramp, just because the ships and the tides change so much. And so, absolutely, if you have mobility issues, do not let Alaska scare you, because the ships can accommodate people in wheelchairs, scooters, everything in Alaska. And so, do not let that scare you, especially with what Derek and I were just talking about with Juneau, and the ship having to back away for a little bit to allow some other ships to come in. Even if you're on a tender, they say that if you have to do the tender, to make sure that you're able to do so, but they still give you 5 or 6 hours in the port where you're able to get on and off the ship without a tender. So please do not let that scare you into not booking an Alaskan cruise, because there's a lot of really, really beautiful things to see out there, and I would hate for that to kind of scare you a little bit. But the
Yeah.
second thing I want to say is, with all the ships coming in, staffing is still an issue.
It
A
is.
couple of years ago, actually, it was last summer, I went on a cruise with my friend Katie. And my friend Katie is a travel nurse in the OR. And so she's always talking to people about their stories and where they're from. And so we went to a coffee shop. And I don't know why we had to. Maybe it actually, no, it was at the bar. And they wanted to see our driver's license. And we're both from Fort Worth. And so we showed him our Texas license. And he said, "Oh, that's cool. I live in Fort Worth." And we're like, "What are you doing in Alaska?" He's like,
Yeah.
I'm a traveler." And we're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "We we work with this company, and we get contracts to come work at all of the bars and all of the gift shops and things like that, because there's a big chunk of the season where they just close up shop. They
Hmm.
close up the t-shirt shops, they close up the bars, because
Yep.
no one's going to take a trip to Skagway in, October, November, December, because it's just cold." So when you go to these gift shops, these people are probably from your state. They all sign these contracts, and they get to stay with the locals, or they have these small hotels where the workers just sleep, and they're locals for about 6 months out of the year. And then the other
Yep.
times they just go back home or take another travel job. So it is really, really cool. And so anytime we would go to another t-shirt shop or gift shop, we would always say, "Where are you from? What's your story?" And they say it is such a cool thing to take these little travel assignments, because they get to see the world, and get paid. So it's
That
another way of traveling, and getting to see the world.
that is really cool. It is. And could you imagine? I imagine a lot of these people are younger in age, and it's like, man, some of these things I just didn't think of, didn't know about, wasn't educated about when I was younger. Otherwise, I'd have said, yeah, sign me up. I would
Hmm.
love to go work in Alaska.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, work at a pub, work at a bar. Yeah, absolutely. I can sling drinks, ice cold
Yeah.
drinks, actually.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, literally. But
Exactly.
man, and and I know Derek, you are the beachy kind of guy. I think you and Amanda were just talking about it on one of your shows the other day, but I think I'm gonna have to like kidnap you and take you to Alaska. Listen, I am a beach guy myself. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got a back to back booked for August going to the beach,
yep,
but to go and experience Alaska, even if you do it one time, you have to do it before
yep.
before you do your next one. You got to do it.
We need
It's
to. We've been
just
so
it's
close. And Amanda, like you said, Amanda, we have butted heads because it'd be like, okay, we've got this window to book a trip. What do you want to do? I'm already hearing the steel drums in my mind, and I'm already feeling
same.
the sun. And she's
Yeah.
like, "Can we do Alaska?" And I'm like, "Do you not hear that? They're playing Buffett right now on the steel drums." And she's like, "What are you
Yeah.
talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, never mind. Whoa." But
Yeah.
we do have to do Alaska. One thing I do want to ask you, because this it scares me. You mentioned remote work
Hmm.
and able to work because the world we have today is a lot different than the world we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago. In the next 5 years, I think it will be accelerated to where a lot more people who have office jobs or bookkeeping jobs they do
Hmm.
work remote. And for some reason, in my mind, when I think about that, I think, yeah, the Caribbean, the ocean, it's wide open. There, you're going to have service. And then I think Alaska, I think of the mountain ranges, and I think about its location, and I'm like, I don't know if they're going to have internet. I'm scared because we could take a lot more trips if
Sure.
I would work remote. How did that work for you? Are you able to take calls, join a Zoom or Teams meeting, answer emails, things like that? How does that work? Because there's a lot of people sitting there thinking, I could work on board. Yeah, what'd that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. That's one thing that I don't talk about a lot, but I think this is a great platform to do so. Um, the Wi-Fi on all of the ships now, they all have Starlink. So
Yep.
it's going to be the best that there is. I will say leaving Seattle on that first day at sea and that very last day at sea, it's a little spotty, but
Mm,
because you're out in the open ocean, it is a
yep.
little spotty, but I never had any major issues with answering phones, emails. Even I had a couple of Zoom calls, and
Mm,
everything worked perfect. It was a little spotty, but nothing that would give me like oh my gosh, this isn't
down.
this
Yeah.
isn't working. Yeah, and then of
Yeah.
course the days that we were in port, like I said earlier in Juneau, we got there at 6 a.m. And so for
Mm,
me, I'm Central Standard Time, and I have to work at 8 a.m. Alaska is 3 hours earlier. So even if there
yep.
was a major issue, my alarm was set at 4:30 a.m. every day because that would be me getting up at 7:30 a.m. just to kind of get ready for work at 8. So if you're going to do remote work, you're probably going to have to wake up early, but it's worth it. And then of course
Yep.
when we were in port, I just used my hotspot on my phone. At that point, the
Cool.
hotspot on your phone connected to AT&T network or whatever network you have, it's going to be a lot stronger than what the ship has to offer. And
Yeah.
so just use your hotspot and it's great because a lot of the times, think about this, a couple of the ports, you're there for 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Skagway, I think we were there at like 7 a.m. and we left at 8 p.m. So I worked from 4:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon. And then I had like an entire port day to go see what
Dang.
I wanted to do. So you get to get your work done early in the morning and then you
That's
have
cool.
hours and hours to go explore. Are you going to be tired? Yeah, but it's worth it because you're on a cruise.
That's right.
So absolutely, do not let Alaska scare you if you are a remote worker. When we were in port, I saw a lot of people stay on the ship and they were all on their laptops. I mean, I saw
Mm,
probably a lot for me was probably 15 to 20 people. Looked like they
yeah.
were working remote, which I thought
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yep. That's awesome. I also want to ask you this. We have booked so many and helped plan so many Alaskan cruises, probably 300 or 400 at least. And one thing that people sometimes are surprised about, they maybe don't do the homework before they book, or if you book through us, we're going to tell you up front. Excursions in Alaska, if you do something every stop, if you add it up, it's going to come close to the total amount per person of your cruise. They're
Hmm.
more expensive. It's not the $70, $80 snorkel.
No.
excursion that you're going to find in the Caribbean. The excursions are 140, $170 a person. And so I always try to tell people you may not be able to afford to, book one of those excursions at every stop for a couple of two, but especially like a family of four or five. So you might pick out one port of call that you really want to do something at. Go ahead and spend that money, and then we can find you something to do for cheaper at the other ports of call. But based on all your experience, not just this year, but this may be itinerary in particular, where is someone, or someone wants to, I'm going to spend the 180 a person on an excursion. What port of call should they really look at to do something special at?
I would say Skagway. Skagway is probably my favorite port. It's the port where it's almost like a ghost town. There's not a lot of people that live in this town.
Mm.
And what Skagway is really, really famous for is the White Pass Summit train. And let me tell
Those
you,
videos were crazy.
I've done this 3 times and it is stunning. And one of the things that I've been saying in the past couple of videos is, and you guys are probably tired of me talking about it, is just the weather's changing so much there. So when I went at the very start of the season with my sister in May, very start of the Alaskan season, we took the White Pass train ride. And guys, my fingers were just frostbitten. It was so cold. But what's cool about this train ride is there you can when the train starts going, you're actually allowed to go in between the train cars, and so you're outside essentially in the elements.
Mm.
And it was really, really cool because it was really gloomy as we were starting, and then as we were going further and further up this mountain, it's about an hour and a half train ride up the mountain. It started to rain a little bit. As we get further and further higher, it started to snow. And by the time we
Oh,
were at the summit, it was it was like it was insane. I felt like I was in like Antarctica. I mean, it
oh,
felt like it for sure, but it was
yeah.
snowing. There was snow everywhere. And it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. I mean, I still watch these videos on my phone all the time because it was just so, so cool. And now
That
3 weeks,
content, if you haven't seen it, go to Alex's Facebook page and check it out, guys. It is like a cinematic movie is being filmed. And Alex, I'm sure, did you shoot that with your iPhone? Like legit,
yeah,
just push the button and hold
yep.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
one of the things that I'm proud of with my content is I just use my iPhone,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
it's just it was the coolest thing. But 3 weeks later, when I went with my friend Jennifer, the snow was almost melted, and
Wow.
and it
Yeah.
was nice and beautiful and sunny, and I got burned again. That sun got me. So 1000% pack your sunscreen when you go to Alaska. I know that sounds weird, but trust me, if you could have seen my face 2 weeks ago, I mean, I was peeling. I was peeling the. I mean, I was. You would have thought I went to Cozumel with
Yeah.
with
And that's what
Derek.
your local friends and family are saying. Oh my goodness, I know you go on trips. What island did you just get back from? And you're like,
Juno.
Alaska.
Yeah. So please pack your sunscreen. And Derek, you made a very, very good point. And I should have had like a whole segment about this. The excursions are pretty expensive. And so you
They
are
are.
absolutely right. Pick one or two of the ports, and that's where you're going to want to really do your research and figure out what you want to do. White Pass Summit train ride in Skagway, 100% hands down. Please, please do that. It is incredible. Skagway is one of the ports that you're at for 10 to 12 hours a day, so you're going to have plenty of time to explore. You don't have there's not a lot to explore in Skagway unless you do an excursions. Otherwise,
Yeah.
there's a couple breweries, there's a couple gift shops, kind of your same type things that
Yeah.
you're going to see everywhere you go. But
Alex, how much was
these,
that ticket for that excursion?
I want to say it was 200.
Yeah. See, that's
Um,
what we're talking about. It's um, pick that one or two stops. You have to spend the money because you've already spent the money to go.
yeah,
So spend the money. But we both of us want to just give a heads up when you book Alaska. Uh, you're going to spend some extra money on excursions, which is totally
yep.
fine.
Skagway is also really, really popular for taking the helicopter to the glacier,
Yeah.
and it's like a day long excursion. And I spoke to
It
Charlie.
lands on the glacier, guys. Like,
Yep, I spoke to Charlie. He was one of the dancers, and it was his birthday weekend. I said, Charlie, what are you going to do for your birthday? He was so excited. He's from England. He's like, I am going to take some of my castmates and we're gonna do the helicopter ride to the glacier. And then not only that, we're gonna land on the glacier, like you said, Derek, and then they get to drink the glacier water, which is
Yep.
what insane. And then they got to do the dog sledding. And
Oh
I
my God.
said, and he said he because they usually get discounts and things like that because they kind of promote
Yeah.
it a little bit. And I said, I bet Carnival's hooking you up for your birthday, right? And he's like, Alaska, we have to pay full price for everything in Alaska. He goes, if we were on a cruise in the Caribbean, he goes, a lot of times they'll just send us, hey, you want to go to the beach for the day? You want to,
Yeah.
you guys want to get off and go have fun? He said for Alaska, they have to pay full price for everything. And I said, well, how much is that? And he goes, it was about $600 or $700 per person
Oh
to
my
do
gosh.
this. But if you think about it,
You think about what you're doing. Yeah.
definitely, if that's your thing and you really want to do that, then do it. For
Yeah.
me, I can't justify paying $600 or $700 for one shore excursion because Derek, sometimes
The
we
whole
we
cruise.
cruise on casino offers, and I'm like, you know how many cruises I could do for $600 or $700? Or it's just your normal average cruiser that saves up their
Yeah.
entire year.
Yeah.
That is their cruise fare for
Yeah.
one shore excursion. I'm like, I would much rather go on
Mm.
two 5 to 7 day cruises than pay for one shore
Yeah.
excursion. But it's a helicopter ride to a glacier, and you get to drink glacier
Yeah.
water, and then you go on a dog sledding thing. It's like, I don't.
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
this
that's
even
like
real? Is this real life?
exactly, exactly. Um, that excursion is very popular. It sells out so quick. Usually, like I know that we've had some clients say we're booking this cruise 2 years in advance. We want to do the helicopter to a glacier. That's why we're taking the cruise. So be sure that you get it for us. And it puts pressure on us because it's a helicopter, guys. They're not taking 40 people. They're taking like six, max eight.
Exactly.
No lie. So it's tough when those come open. And the cruise line offers it, and there are independent operators. But if I'm
Yes.
riding a helicopter,
Hmm.
I'm probably booking through the cruise line because we're going to partner with those. I know that they're looking at those helicopters and making sure they're safe, things like that. Not that others aren't, but I want to do everything I can do to control that. But there's also we get a lot of requests for the ice caves, which I'm not sure I would do. I would do the helicopter on a glacier, but there are also these ice caves that you can go walk around, and it's neat because you're in a cave and it's made of ice, and there's different shades of blue and white. And I'm like, my luck. One of my kids would come with me and kick, little jacks kick the wall, and here we come crumbling down,
Yeah.
which I know is
Yeah.
not going to happen. But in my mind, I'm like, ice is so fragile,
I think worst
but
case
it's something else
scenario in
that
those
people enjoy.
situations.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
One last thing before we wrap up, Derek, is I wanted to say when I go to the Caribbean, when I do anything but Alaska, I always, you know, no shame on Carnival or any of the cruise lines, but I always go through independent parties because you do get a much better deal. But it's a little bit easier to get back to the ship in those places, and it's
Oh
the
yeah,
transportation is just a lot easier because it's not a seasonal type operation. When you do anything in Alaska, there are people that do their independent party searches, and they have a lot of success stories. But for me, even as a cruiser, I've been on 29 cruises now.
hmm
I When I'm in Alaska, and I've done it a lot, I will always book through the cruise line because you never know. My friend Jennifer that I just went with, it was her very first cruise ever, very first time in Alaska ever. She is a let's just let's just figure it out. And I was working remote, so I sent her off into Juneau by herself. I sent her off into a lot of these ports by herself, and I felt safe doing so because
yeah,
the people that live here are safe people. But I was like, Jennifer, I don't know what the transportation's like. I don't Do they have Uber here? I don't know. The answer is yes. It's they definitely have a lot of public transportation, things like that. And she went to the Mendenhall Glacier in Juneau, and she
mm,
did the hike, and she had a great time. But she said getting back was a little sketchy because she did take the city bus, and just imagine like taking a city bus in a place like New York City or something. And
yeah.
she said it was a little sketchy, and so just please do your research before you do
That's right.
these types of things, and you may think that you're in the United States, so everything's going to be happy go lucky. You never know. So please book your excursions with the cruise line.
Yep, yep. You're spot on there, and I tell our clients, you're in vacation mode. You've switched over to it. You are in relaxed mode. You're in a great mood. Don't ever let your guard down of where you're
Right.
at, your surroundings, and things like that. Even though you're on vacation mode, do not let that guard down.
That's right.
Alex, that was awesome. Two good episodes here. One, the Caribbean, a short cruise. One, this week's episode in Alaska, and we have future adventures as well. Alex, like he said, he has a back-to-back coming up that he's going to share all kinds of content. We'll get some stories there. This is July. It's July 1st, which is hard to believe, and that means now in 15 days. We head out and we're going to fly to Rome, Italy to sail the Sun Princess to Athens. So uh, we've got a lot of content to
Man,
capture, to
Derek,
share, and
if
experiences.
if I did not have to work, I would be going on
Oh,
that same cruise with you, man. You guys, please, please, please follow Derek and Amanda on Island Time on YouTube and on their Facebook page. I am so
appreciate
excited
that.
to live vicariously through you guys. And what I love is I love that you're taking the kids on this
Yeah.
humongous once in a
Oh,
lifetime
it's
trip. And
it.
and I know we're at 51 minutes and I need to stop, but I just watched your vlog from your Breeze Cruise, your episode
Yeah,
1. And I know you always make the comment, people want to see more of this. You did such a good job with that.
I
I
appreciate
love that
that
you were
because I
talking to the
question
kids.
myself. We're just now. I'm just now starting vlogs, and I'm not the best at it. I will tell you right now. But I try to put all that stuff together and music together. And so any feedback, positive or negative, is appreciated because we are new to the vlog world.
Well, it's, when I go to these diamond and platinum gatherings, I always think I'm only 33 years old, so certainly I'm gonna get the award for the youngest platinum person on the cruise. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but it's always like a 2 year old or 6 year old,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what the crap?
Yeah.
And Derek, I know your kiddos are probably getting really close to becoming diamond. I mean, I love this
My
about you
my
guys is
oldest
you
especially.
don't
Yeah,
you
we
don't just leave them at home for every cruise. You
no.
do leave them with the grandparents a little bit so you and Amanda can have fun, but
Yeah,
your kids are pretty darn experienced, and I love that.
they are. And especially my oldest is really into cultures and languages and traditions, and he'll ask how they do certain thing in this culture. And it's neat for him too because he's learned, like the Colosseum, for example. He's already heard about the Colosseum and seen it
Yeah.
at school for whatever reason. And then when I tell him, "Hey, we're going to go see the Colosseum," and every time
What?
everything shocks him. Like I said, the fireworks. Remember the fireworks at the beginning of the
Yep.
show?
Yep.
Everything I tell him, it
Yeah.
just mouth hung open, wide eyed. And so it's a blessing to be able to do it. But one thing I want to remind all of you, Alex and I, we're travelers, and we want to help you travel, whether it's Caribbean. Alex and I have probably been to every port of call in the Caribbean. We went to Europe last year, sailed from Barcelona, did a transatlantic to New York City. Alex has been to Alaska. We're going to Europe. Uh, if you are looking for an experience, if you're looking for something different, maybe you've done the Caribbean 10 times, you want something different, be sure to leave a comment and say, hey, I'm looking for something like this. Should I choose this or that? What's the best time to cruise in Alaska? Leave those comments, and Alex and I will share our thoughts and opinions and try to point you in the right direction so that you spend your hard earned money on a cruise or a vacation that you want to go on. So, Alex, it's always neat to catch up and to see all of our adventures, and we're blessed to be able to do so. It's This show is a great blessing to me.
Likewise, I am so grateful for this show and for, like I said, still haven't met you yet, but virtually you are a very, very great friend of mine, and Amanda as well.
That's
I'm,
right.
I'm I'm very thankful for this show. And next week, I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but absolutely Mondays through the rest of the summer, we are going to be posting content on here. I've been working on the Facebook page a little bit, and so
Yep.
I'm trying to be more interactive with you guys. But for now. Um, Let us know what you think of this episode in the comment section below. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a follow on our Facebook page, The Cruisers Podcast. But for now, my name's Alex,
And I'm Derek.
and thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll see you next week.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th!